There we go.
Okay. All right.
And
Let me
I'll
know when
give
you-
a brief.
Can you see it?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so just a quick background, like Heather Trim is with Fairway Washington, as she'll probably mention. But she's been one of our lead partners in the Plastic Washington Coalition, or the Washington Sing Plastico Coalition. And they're who we worked really closely with on the SB 5022, which is the bill that just bans styrofoam, among other things that we passed this last legislative session, as well as our bag ban that finally goes into effect October 1st. So Heather has been a guest presenter several times and is just full of so much knowledge. I don't know how she keeps it in her head at one time. But yeah, so she's going to give us the lowdown on the ETAP protocol. So take it away, Heather.
Oh, you know what? In unstable internet, why don't you go ahead and share your screen? I will go off of here and go onto my phone.
All right, we'll do.
Okay.
Let me just pull up the thing that I need. PDF. Enlarge. All right. Boom, boom. Okay. Can everybody see my screen or the shared screen of the survey slide?
Yeah, we can see it.
Good. I'm going to assume it's good. All right, we got a yes from Christine in the chat. And hopefully Heather will be able to talk at some point soon. Do some hold music. Heather,
Do we have the Team Zissou theme song? That'd be good.
I can definitely pull up the Team Zissou. It's on my playlist. We cannot hear you, Heather. I'll try muting and unmuting you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
There we go. Whew.
Okay, great. Okay, good. Okay, so hi everybody, and I have talked to you all quite a bit, so I'm going to go quickly on some background and then get right into it. Liz, do you mind forwarding?
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about the purpose of the new working on, and then that'll include data entry and collaboration and discussion. And then if you could move to the next one, I want to start with just a little bit of background that you all have already well know, and that is, as Liz mentioned, a Plastic-Free Washington Coalition, and Liz has been a major player in that, and you all have been major players in legislation. And the overall goal that we have is to solve the excess plastics and our recycling crises by reducing the use of unnecessary plastics like bags, and then building markets and restoring our recycling system so we have jobs here in Washington. Okay, next slide. Liz, can it advance?
All right.
Next slide.
It should
Anything
be.
different? Oh, there. Nope. Forwards. Next slide.
I think there's a delay. I'm on the foam, the polystyrene slide right now, like the products we
Oh, you
banned.
are? Okay, there must, okay, so right, so Senator Doss and, okay, that's good right there. Senator Doss and Liz Berry championed 5022, and that was very exciting. And just as a reminder, in case any of you have any questions about the bill, next slide, this bans polystyrene, and the packing peanuts will go in first. So that's going to be June of 2022. The other two got the foam food serviceware and the coolers were given an extra year during session, which I don't think needed to happen, but it did happen. Next slide. And then starting January 1, and this was first in the nation, restaurants and school cafeterias and institutions and third-party delivery services have to get customer affirmation for these items. So utensils, which include splash sticks, straws, cold cup lids, and condiment packs. Next slide. And then the last major piece of this legislation was minimum recycled content requirements. So for beverage containers by 2031, 50% recycled content. And this next slide matches the pledges that they've all made. And then next slide, personal care and cleansers in the household. Same thing, 50% by January 1, 2031. This was first in the world. And then lastly, for trash bags, 20% by January 1, 2027. So I'm going to pause there and see if you all have any questions about that, and also to let you know that the bag bill will go into effect October 1. Any comments or questions? Just make sure. Okay, cool. Let's keep going then. Okay, so I also wanted to mention that we are teeing up, and this is Zero Waste Washington, partly in partnership with Liz, 4 bills for session. One is the packaging omnibus bill, so that's improving recycling and having the producers pay for the end of life, everything in your blue bin. That's a major, major lift, and Maine and Oregon have just passed similar bills. We're also really gonna be one of the 2 states that are the battleground states on right to repair, and that's us and New York, and that is to require that the major manufacturers have to pay for the parts, or rather offer at cost the parts, the specs, and the tools to repair electronic devices. That's cell phones, refrigerators, laptops, etc. A lot of things made out of plastic. If they're over 5 years old. And this has been a major, major brutal fight, and we are gearing up. And then extended producer responsibility for batteries. The lithium-ion batteries explode, as you may have seen on the Alaska Airlines flight yesterday. These are very dangerous, and we need to have producer responsibility for them. And then lastly, a major bill on organics and methane. And I'm happy to talk about these later. I just wanted to give you a little advertisement. Okay, next slide. So the packaging product stewardship bill is the idea is, as I said, the manufacturers pay. I forgot that I had this slide in here. Okay, next. I can't remember what I had put in here. Okay, here we go. So now let's start talking about the new EPA protocol that we've been working on in Washington for 3 years. We worked with them on assessing the litter from litter cleanups. Next slide. And the idea is to help fill that critical data gap, the fresh water, which you all have been doing with, for example, your cigarette butt cleanups. We're trying to identify what is actually the sources and quantities and types of material coming from the land to the marine water, and it's about 80% is the estimate of what's in the marine water is from land. And this is also helping support the Federal Clean Water Act and the RCRA, which is the related also toxic related act. And then we're trying to create, and basically we've piloted in Washington, and we're trying to refine a national protocol so that we have apples to apples data from one cleanup to another. And it's called ETAP, Escaped Trash Assessment Protocol. That was EPA's name for it. Next slide. And under the Clean Water Act, there is a provision, 303D, Section 303D, where you can call waters like creeks and lakes and the Sound impaired, meaning they are not meeting the water quality standards. So usually you think of that for like copper or toxic chemicals or dissolved oxygen or it's too hot. But you also could think about it in terms of plastic pollution, and that is our goal. Our goal is to have Washington State start to list our rivers and creeks and lakes as impaired under the Section 303D of the Clean Water Act. If that happens, then it will trigger requirements to clean that stuff up. Next slide. Right now, there are 6 states plus Washington, D.C., where this is already happening, and we want to add Washington to this map. Next slide. And overall, our purpose in Washington is to provide data right now in going around helping groups do this assessment, is to provide baseline information all across the region and the state so that we can know what we have, how many cigarette butts we have, for example, per square foot here versus square foot there in terms of different settings and different locations. And then also provide information that could then be used for action. So for example, reducing bags. Next slide. So we started working on this back in 2017 and developed the protocol with EPA, and then a variety of groups helped test it in 2018, 2019. We had COVID, and during COVID, EPA refined it, and now in 2021, we're helping support local groups do the cleanup protocol, and about every time you do a cleanup, but maybe once every couple of years. Next slide. So next slide. So all the groups that we're working with have a really wide range of interests. So some are particularly focused on beaches. You all are obviously focused on beaches and ocean and those impacts. Others, creeks and lakes, and some are sort of parks groups, and some are even like downtown business associations who are working on beautification, or other groups that are working on stormwater. Next slide. And so what we are doing is we're assisting groups with their events and also with the data entry, which is pretty easy, but you kind of need help the first time. And then we're compiling all this data into a report, which we're going to be doing actually right after your cleanup on September 11th. We're going to have the first report for Washington. So your data, I'm trying to make the timing be perfect for your September 11th data to go right into it. And then also providing template presentation materials that you can customize based on the data. Next slide. So here is the info about the protocol. So it was the first thing that happened was an EPA staff person reviewed all of the existing protocols that she could find, and here's a listing of many of them to see kind of what was, if any of them would work. And bottom line is none of them were actually going to work well for this, but there were sort of the best of each of these that were picked. Next slide. And it has basically three steps, which are kind of what you already do anyway. So select the site, and often what we're trying to do in Washington is go where people are already doing the work. We're not trying to create new sites. Do a site characterization and actually do the cleanup, and then do the data entry and analysis. Next slide. So in terms of the site, this is just an example of Gasworks Park in Seattle. What we do is we mark off the area that's being assessed, and we usually use traffic cones. And we then use our phone, and we get the GPS coordinates of each of the corners, or if it's more than a rectangle, each of get the boundary basically, so we can go online, use GIS, and get how many square feet the actual area is. Next slide. And then we characterize the site, and I'm not going to go over this slide because the next one actually shows it in more detail. So next slide. Okay, good, great. So you basically are kind of putting down the basic information about the site as you arrive at it. And that also includes, for example, what waterways or creeks that is, or lakes or beach, what storm drains are near it, what habitats near it. Okay, next slide. And you look at just a visual of like how littered is it if you just scan over with your eye, and then also what kind of interventions are already in place. Are there trash cans? Are there cigarette receptacles? Things like that. Next slide. And it's super important in doing this cleanup. And this is the thing that makes this unique to some of the other cleanup protocols. And for example, the normal one used for Coastal Cleanup Day is that we want people to pick up every single bit of trash at the site, even the tiny things. So you can see here, orange peels. I was just doing one in Edmonds a few weeks ago, and we found a ton of sunflower seed things, and also orange peels, by the way, and pistachio nut shells as well. So that's why we mark off the assessment area. And if you're doing a bigger cleanup, that's cool. We just want to make sure that the area that we're assessing and actually pulling the litter from is an area that's small enough where we can actually get every single bit. By the way, this also includes dog poop, and it includes charred wood, anything that would not naturally be there in the first place. Next slide. So the cleanup can either be that you do all the cleanup and the cataloging in the same moment, same day, overlapping with the volunteers, or sometimes we do cleanups and bring the material back and do the cataloging afterwards. It doesn't matter. Next slide. And in the cleanup, we have people fan out and collect all of the trash. So we have the volunteers do several sweeps, not just go once, but actually kind of zigzag back and forth, and even another team goes out after it, because we really are trying to get all the litter, and you know how it is. You don't actually see it all the first time you go over. And if they're large items or hazardous items, we don't move them, we just take photos and document them. Next slide. And so as the volunteers are bringing in the buckets, and I should take the word bags off of here. We really are going with Home Depot buckets nowadays. We sort the cataloged items into pails, and then we fill out a data sheet and photograph the piles and weigh the material, and we double count 4 categories. Next slide. So these are the pails where we have now I have these black bins, so it's a lot easier than dumping on the table. And we are sorting, and each of the pails has a tag on it, and it has a description of what goes in it. So, and we've had a lot of sort of iterations of this. So we've added in, okay, where do lollipop sticks go? Where do rubber bands go? Where do slide? And for very small pieces, we do a cup measure, and that's because you know, when you go to a site and you have thousands of pieces of broken glass, which we had at one site, or thousands of pieces of little styrofoam, we just went to a volume measure for we have the tiny pieces, which are 2.5 centimeters or smaller, and this is the 2.5 centimeter cutoff is the NOAA cutoff, so that's why we use the 2.5 centimeter. Next slide. So here's some examples of fouled and unfouled items, because EPA wanted to have a distinction between things where you can see the barnacles growing on it or it's heavily rusted, meaning that it's been in the environment a really long time, versus stuff that's just simply dirty. And so we actually have 2 columns on the sheet, one for fouled and one for unfouled. Next slide. And here's the first part of the field data sheet. And I know it's kind of hard to see, but across the top, you can see that we're counting how many pieces are you finding that are unfouled and how many pieces are you finding that are fouled. And then you have the double count, and then you have the weight, and then you have a description, and the description is where we put the brand information. And then we have, going down the left-hand side, we have plastic, and then I can't remember what it was, paper, and then metal, glass, yeah, paper, oh yeah, styrofoam, and then paper, and then next slide. Glass, metal, I can't even read it on my phone, but fishing, oh yeah, fishing and maritime, vessels, that is in vehicles, smoking, which also includes drug stuff, and then other. The other category are things that have to do with trying to identify the sources. EPA really wanted to say, can we figure out where are these things coming from? And so that's why if you can identify that it's a medical thing, or for example, PPE, you know, we want to do that first. Then we are participating in the international brand audit, and so that's why we have people put the brands in the comments or on the back. Next slide. And here is an example of photographing. So we put down the card that we've used on the pails, and we photograph. This was from, I think this was from our Vashon site. Anyway, next slide. And this is another example of photograph. Next slide. We weigh things either using a kitchen scale or a luggage scale, and we weigh the entire category. So once we've got all of the glass bottles, we weigh them all together, and we take the photographs all together. Next slide. And now in the data entry, next slide. So we basically are using an Excel sheet that EPA created, and it has some auto features. Next slide, I'll show you these. So it makes some automatic pie charts and graphs. And then next slide. And here's some more of the pie charts and graphs that it makes. Next slide. So people say, well, you know, when you do volunteer data collection, it is really, you know, not rigorous. And I'm sure you all completely disagree with that statement. And so what we have is a QA/QC document, a QAP, and in there we have these quality assurance measures and the photographs are super helpful, because then you can go back if you have a question about things. So photographing, we train the volunteers, we do double checks of the site to ensure that all items have, in other words, sweep the site at least twice. Catalog everything in pairs if we can, double count 4 categories, and then have the site leader sign off on the data. Next slide. And here are some examples. So cigarette butts, which I know you guys have done a lot on. This is a cleanup that we did the same day. We did an alley up in Burien, and we did a beach in Burien. Can you all hear me? Liz, can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, good. I got a call there. Okay, so the same amount of square footage, and that same day, it was April, it was pouring rain, 1,541 cigarette butts in the alley and like 10 or 12 cigarette butts down at the beach. Same amount of square footage. And this will not surprise you all at all. Next slide. And then here's all the straws that we got that day in the alley. Next slide. This is a Vashon cleanup we did in April, and you can see all this is the recreational category, which does include gun wads and it does include fireworks. And you can see on the right all the stuff covered with barnacles. So those would be considered fouled. Next slide. And here is that same Vashon day showing a lot of personal care things we found out in the beach. Next slide. And organic material from that day. So you can see we had orange peels and in fact an entire orange, which that thing on the left is. Next slide. That day also we got a ton of construction material. So that's what you see here. Shoot, can you hear me? Okay, here's a volunteer doing the pails. Next slide. And here is a project we were doing in South Seattle with the Duwamish youth. This is the prep for that day. Next slide. Here they are doing some of the sorting. And then next slide. And that is the end of my presentation.
Rapid fire. I aspire to be half that smart one day. Yeah, so thank you all for sitting through our first half of the meeting, and I hope that was really informative. Like Heather mentioned, we will be trying to conduct our first ETAP survey as a chapter on September 11th, which is what our International Coastal Cleanup Day event will be held. So it's going to be from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., although we'll probably be there a little bit later if we're digging through, having a great time sorting trash. And we will be at Twin Harbors State Park at the southern entrance. So it's like the Bonge Avenue approach on the south end of the park. But we have a filmmaker who I would like to introduce or allow her to introduce herself. Go for it.
Hi, I am Dana Frankoff, and I am the director and producer of Voice Above Water, which you guys are so kindly showing at your chapter meeting. I love what you guys do. Like, a Surfrider is one of my favorite organizations, so I'm really excited to share the film with you guys. And I can save any other information or questions for after we watch the film.
Awesome.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming and being willing to show up. It was kind of a last minute thing that we added on. So, and a big thanks to Christine for reaching out. I'm excited. I haven't watched it yet. So
Cool.
is it okay if we like record it as part of the chapter meeting?
Yeah, totally. It's
Okay.
online now, so that's fine.
All right, cool. So I'm going to make sure everybody is muted. And then I'm going to leave my computer unmuted and try to stream it through Zoom. So hopefully that works well. If not, I will definitely make sure to share a link to the film so you can watch it without potential lag or whatever. My husband, I'm sure, will burst in and be loud during this or whatever. So, all right, we're gonna try it. I'm gonna share my screen, and then I'll hum. All right. Can everybody see that okay? Thumbs up. Awesome. I'm going to.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Please mute yourselves, and then I'm going to press play.
I don't know if we're getting volume.
Been pretty quiet.
Oh, okay. It's quiet though. Yeah.
orang nyoba think the one comment hijau-hijau tu. Yang dot bumi bersih pancara pijaan. Nama kakek Iwayan Nob berumur 90 tahun. Dari 10 tahun baru belajar mancing. Kak cuma belajar mancing sendiri. Suka peka cuma di pantai saja. Lihat keadaan di laut. Atau angin atau ombak. Lagi di pantai bagus. Lihat sini ada pemandangan baik. Lihat di sana ada pandangan baik. Oh begini airnya bagus. Coba-coba ke laut. Tiang uli bacang, naik cer berdidi, naik kaca berdidi. Kok beli lega. Ada takutan, saya kaki takutan. Nah, di ikan mancing tu liu ada kumitang. Lima semua bakat. Ayu main bisik bahkan di kunciang sini lagi kelom mau pahit ayu bisik. Sekarang tak ada kumitang sebab plastik banyak. Wah, ini kan plastik marah. Jok, buang lagi. Nah, mancing lah tak. Nunam mancing. Ada menggeleduk ngedong. Amak plastik. Nunam bil plastik. Pasang bidang apa kena ke duku. Apa ke dawat tangkap ke pasir anu plastik tu tambunan di dawat. Yang saya nepuk anak utang-utang plastik ke pasir. Di sini nak wang mencemarkan pasir kata. Morning nyama Jawa teka Pak bang idih ni Pak nah. Sekarang bertiang ke Jawa. Nah mak semua berkejang berjemaah. Mapan itu ada pengolah ni, pabrik ni, perulang ni. Kamu buat mani lamun tak ada ben di pasir Yang je nyemak apa ke daun. Pak nyemak apa mai apa kemu ke daun. Yang dot pulau yang pang kembali cara ini subur. Nama saya Men Lamu. Lahir saya bulan di sini. Umur saya tidak tahu bagaimana saya tidak masuk. Yang ketemu buka ring pasir. Nak gagain dia ni kesai-sai kita dulu. Kadang-kadang mancing, kadang-kadang mesti nyaring, nak penghidupan ni ke hari-hari ni ke. Tenglah pekerjaan aku ada. Buli gas kentong, buli gas tok tu ampun yang ampun. Udang tahun ni ke tenungin tiang. Kak kan agama Hindu bercara berula dari segala syukur dengan teman-teman diajak mancing sudah mati. Pekak sendiri saja tinggal. Jadi tak ada dekat, tak ada plastik ni. Takut kak aman plastik ni. Jauh dulu akan hasil akan penyah. Amah plastik ni si duduk. Cucu pekak dah supaya ikut potong-potong. Lihat orang lain di Indonesia supaya ikut bersatu potong-potong. Kalau laut ini rusak, pekak marah. Itu pekak sukar. Kalau sudah mati, ya mati. Ini gotong royong, sana ndak gotong royong, ngambil bisa lagi kembali.
That was awesome. And it's restarting. That was fantastic. I hope the audio was okay for everybody. I heard there might
The audio sucked. You got to give us a
Yeah.
little watch it online.
another one. Yeah. Well, we'll definitely share the link so y'all can watch and if the music didn't come through, because I know it doesn't always come through well through Zoom. So it's worth a rewatch. I will certainly be watching it again.
Yeah, it's way different with the sound or with the music in the background. And it was a bit laggy, but yeah, I hope you guys, maybe it was more like a teaser into the film.
I had a great experience. I got to see it and hear it, and it was awesome.
Yes, it did play at Banff Mountain Film. It actually, we won Best Short, and which we were really excited about because we're trying our hardest just to get it done for Banff, and never in a million years thought it would have won Best Short. So that was a true honor. And if you guys have been to Banff Film Festival or attended online this past year, the films that they have are really incredible and really inspiring about ways to help the environment, and inspiring stories about people out there just like you guys that are doing things to help whether they can. So highly recommended. It's coming up in October again, the end of October to beginning of November.
It's going to be virtual again this year.
I don't know if they've decided to do it. Will be virtual, maybe in person too. I think like everything else, it's just kind of on hold until they see what else is happening by then.
Well, congrats.
Dana, your video looked really good. I just I'm going to listen. I want to watch it again where everything is smooth and unjerky and high resolutions and LinkedIn. But that was really good. I'm impressed with the fact that you thought to capture all of that from such a small village of people and to put it in a bigger perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where did you find him? Like, how did this film come about?
Yeah, that's always everyone's first question is where we found Wyon, which is great because it's a story about him and he's supposed to be really endearing to everyone, you know, and hit a chord. So it's great that he is what captivates everyone. But yeah, so I'm sure you guys probably are familiar, maybe even worked with 4Ocean. You know, they're another big help clean the plastic out of the ocean company, or they're a company, they're not a nonprofit. And I was doing a bunch of research. I knew that I wanted to do a film about the ocean, and this was my first film. So I really just was like, okay, I'm going to start talking to scientists, nonprofits, whoever I can, to hear what a good story would be to make a film from. And I didn't know where it would go. I didn't know if it was just going to be my family watching it or what. And so I was able to talk to the creative director at 4Ocean, and he told me about these fishermen that they had hired in Bali to collect trash because the fish were no longer in the area because of plastic pollution. And so Wyon is not a member of 4Ocean. He's not getting hired to do it. But when we went to Nusa Penida, our DP and editor went on a location scout there, and he sent me a couple photos, and I saw Wyon's photo and I was like, that guy has character. He has a story to tell. It was true. He was great on camera. He was so excited when we arrived. He didn't even really say hi. He just started doing his little plastic thing about like taking the plastic out of his boat and putting it into the pile near his hut. And he was so ready to make the film and such a ham for the camera that even when we tried to film like his wife and kids, he would start playing the flute, and we're like, okay, all cameras back on Wyon. And also just a huge inspiration, you know, he's 90, probably 91 by now. And he saw a problem, you know, and he used his, you know, what some compared to where we are, minimal resources, to go out and really make a difference. And so that was the inspirational moment for me, when I realized that he was a small story of what we could all do, and such an inspiring character. I was like, this is enough. We have enough here to make a really inspiring film.
I hope I'm not that spry now. He's spry.
I know.
know.
It's just
Jeez.
healthy. Was living on the water, eating fish.
Yep.
So I haven't had a chance to stalk you on the internet yet. So
I can fill in the gaps.
I was going to ask you if that was your first film, and you answered that. And then I know sometimes it takes a long time to film these and then do the production and creation. So I was just actually wondering how long it took you to do this film, and was curious how long you stayed on the island with the family and what that experience was like, and had you done anything, you know, kind of primitive like that before?
Yeah, those are all really good questions. It is my first film. I had never done anything like this before. Now I'm currently in production on 3 other films, so it's become a big part of my life. I should say though, I do work in production at Pixar Animation Studios, so I do know about the process of film. I've worked in film for over a decade, never on documentaries though. This purely came out of me wanting to use the production skills that I have working at places like Pixar to do something that helps the environment. And so it's actually surprising to people, but because of the circumstances, I was in pre-production, and I say I because it really did start me in this apartment, like just trying to figure out the story and how to get a production company together to shoot it in Bali and all that stuff. And that part was the longest part. Like that for me, that took 8 months. And once that was super organized, and I felt good about it, we set a date with the production company that I had found in Bali. And you know, each day that you're filming is your whole budget is for those days. So we actually shot the film in 2.5 days, which, even talking to other documentary short filmmakers, is a short amount of time. And we were really lucky that, you know, nothing went wrong. We were able to get everything we needed. We did go back and get more voiceover with Wyon one day, and we got some more audio. But other than that, we were really able to get what we needed. And because at the time it was pre-COVID, I was going into the studio at work every day. So I wasn't able to leave to go to Bali until I took 2 weeks off to go film and work and post over there. And so the director of photography, he was there. And so he was the one that spent time with Wyon and got to know his story a little bit more, and then kind of relayed that over to me. So my time with Wyon was probably only 3.5 days, which I really, really would have liked to do more of. The co-producer and I, he also makes films on sustainability. We always say the dream is to go spend time and like really get to know these people and their families and etc. And I'm trying to do that on the films that I am working on now, which sometimes works, and then other times you realize like it's really expensive to be in Hawaii for a long period of time and get to hang out with these people. Because one of my next films is on ocean sea plant farmers in Hawaii. So you just make the best of what you have, and you have phone calls to get to know them, and you spend a day, you know, just listening to their stories when you're there, and before you even start pulling out the camera or anything like that. So, and then what I've learned too is that these are lifelong relationships. Like once you make a film with somebody, it becomes such an intimate process and collaboration once it's out into the world, even, that it really is like I will know of Wyon, keep in touch. We went back and showed him the story for the rest of his life, you know. So and then the post-production, it was really interesting. We were there in shelter in place. So when that happened in the United States, so March of was it 2020 when everything got shut down? So we had to make a big decision of, are we going to fly back home sooner than we thought, or are we going to stay in Bali and potentially get stuck there? Decided to come back home. I was still I still do work at Pixar, and I would have to work at like 3 a.m. there, and the time difference would have been too much. But my co-producer, who is a freelance filmmaker, he stayed for the last year and kind of created a little life there, and did another film about plastic pollution in Bali, and so coming home and not really being able to leave my apartment, I had a lot of time to work on the post-production, which it really sped up the process. So I was able to, spend a few hours at least a day at nights after work, just making like a script for a shooting script or an editing script, so that the editor just really had to cut it together. And then of course, that was just for the first cut. And then there's all the processes you go through after that. But I guess the point is the pre-production for this film was the longest process out of all three, which is not usually the case. And we did collaborate with Surfrider. I guess it was probably like 8 months ago now. So you could see at the end, there's the Break Free from Plastic Act petition. So I was really excited to get to do that. Chad Nelson and I were on a panel together at the Coast Film Festival in Laguna. And he was really excited about the film, and we had coffee on the beach. And I was like, my goal was to always bring the message on a federal level so people could reach out and partake in not just like their daily, being mindful in their daily routine, but also reach out to the government, because we know that there's so much power there and so much that we can do. And so it was really great when Chad told me about that Break Free from Plastic Act that you guys supported. And it was like, okay, this is the perfect thing to put at the end of the film. Thank you so much. So it's been really cool
You stole my
collaborating.
question. I was totally going to ask like how the Surfrider connection got made, because I did notice that. I was like, yes, Surfrider.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Did you get to go snorkeling with Ryan? Or does he
What?
does he snorkel anymore, or does he just fish now?
He just fishes now. He's, he mostly stays in his boat, but there is a scene with the younger Wyon, that actor we hired to play the younger Wyon, and we had to overlap. So the producer went and did the underwater filming with them, and he did get to swim with them. And then I was on the boat with Wyon that day. So it's okay. It worked out that way. And I was actually excited to let somebody else do that and make sure the crew was excited about the filming process. And
Question?
But did you have an interpreter?
we did. So part of the Bali Prod company that I met up with, they had a translator with there, and that was super helpful. And then him and I afterwards went through and all the footage, and he transcribed it. And even after he had transcribed it, there was certain things that were hard to see how it really translated into English. So I had to, we like talked through, but okay, these are the words it says, but what does it mean? So that we could really interpret what the core of what Wyon was saying.
Dana, I have a question. Where has this film been shown, or has it been shown frequently yet?
Yes, so it's actually just finished the film festival circuit. It started at Banff Mountain Film, so almost, a year in October. And then it continued from there, and it did really well. We were really lucky. It won 5 awards. And then I was gonna let it continue going until, October of this year, but it recently got a Vimeo staff pick, and I was like, okay, it's feeling like it's time to release it. And we had kind of already gotten into the main festivals that we were excited about. And then a lot of the festivals still don't mind, actually, is what I've learned, even though it's accessible to the public now online. It's still getting into festivals. So we actually just got into the San Diego International Film Festival, which is really great. Nothing in Washington, though, surprisingly. So I guess this would be the Washington premiere.
Sweet.
Yeah. So that's cool. But yeah, it played in London and Bali and all over the United States, on the East Coast, West Coast, in between. So it was a pretty good run.
What did you say? It won an award for best short?
Yeah, it won Best Short at Banff. It won Best Short at the San Luis Obispo Film Festival. It won First Time Filmmakers Award at the International Ocean Film Festival. It won the Environmental Filmmakers Award at the Coast Film Festival. And then I'm totally forgetting one. It'll come to me. Yeah.
Wow, that's exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So Dana, I have a question for you. This is Dave. So obviously you've had some notoriety with this short, and it was very enjoyable to watch. I can see why and how people really gravitated towards that, and so, you know, maybe made some personal connections. So, but for you as like the producer and filmmaker, what has that meant for you? Has it kind of charged you to kind of take on bigger fish, if you will? And what do you have in the pipeline that kind of, was a direct motivation from this project?
Yeah. Thanks for that question. It's been an interesting process, to be honest. Like I at Pixar, I'm a small fish in a big sea. I listen to what the director says, I take notes, and I pass it along to other people. And then to be able to have a voice like that, and people to want to watch it, and for it to actually do well, was a big vote of confidence, and now I still go to those meetings where I'm like taking notes for the director at Pixar, and I still appreciate that. But I also feel like I found a voice that I didn't know that I had. And people are asking me to make their films and tell their stories. So I have one film currently in production. We shot it all. We finished it in June, and that's the one in Hawaii about the ocean sea plant farmers. And that's my next passion project. That's like my voice above water, like my personal baby, and the one I'm really excited about. The other two I'm actually also extremely excited about, but it's people that reached out to me. So one that might come out, we're hoping comes out in the next few weeks, is sponsored by the American Rivers, and it's about the drought on the Colorado River. And we followed a long distance swimmer who was attempting a 52-mile swim, which would be the world record. And so that was really amazing. So it's not ocean, but it's rivers and environmental. And then a piece that I just filmed this weekend, and we're filming the rest in September, is about the Ecology Center, which is one of the largest sustainable farms in California, in San Juan Capistrano. And it's a story about the land and sustainability and community. And the more that unravels, the more I'm like, wow, this is going to be such an incredible piece. And I feel really lucky to get to tell that story as well.
Well, that's excellent. We're looking forward to your next works for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm going to stay on the ocean theme, but if people continue and have other stories that need to be told to help the environment, then it's hard to say no. And I'm just so appreciative of what you guys do too. Like everybody that is here this evening and spending this time to focus on how to make this world a cleaner place and protect our coastlines and our ocean are my people. And I really, really appreciate the cleanups and just bringing awareness, because it takes all of us, and it's not an easy challenge to take on. It's massive. So everybody that is doing their little part, which sometimes can feel like it's not much, but it is, I really credit you guys a lot.
Question about the showing of this. Is it something we can watch anytime online, or do we have to get a copy of it, or is it generally available yet?
Yeah, why don't I, so the Vimeo, it's now released publicly on Vimeo, and I can put the link in the chat, because I think you guys, if you want to, should watch it, and you'll see it's with the music and everything, it makes a big difference too. But yeah, I can look that up right now and send it to you guys.
Yeah, I'd like to see if we have the Puget Sound Estuarium locally, and there's other ones like it in Pacific Northwest. I'd like to see if they wanted to show this to their visitors on the weekends.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, the more educational, like we just want people to really to bring awareness, and are open to sharing it with whomever and as many people as possible.
Yeah. Well, I believe when Liz puts the recording up on our website, it will have the link. And so people will be able to, when they go to watch that and watch this kind of chat with you, they'll have a clear view of it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, and
Thank
if
you.
yeah, feel free to share it with as many people, and then reach out if you have any more questions after you watch it again. And I love having this is my favorite part, is having the conversations and seeing where we can take it from here.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. And I feel refreshed and inspired, because I know cleaning up trash, infinite trash can be, it's fun. Beach cleanups are fun, but it's also kind of a downer, because you're like, this is so hopeless, this fight. And so it's so nice to see people from all parts of the world are like fighting this fight with us, whether or not we know they are. And so this little old man off in the other side of the world is like kind of doing the same, fighting the same fight. So it's really inspiring to just kind of know that. And thank you for telling that valuable and powerful story.
Yeah, thanks for watching and sharing.
Yes, thank you. It was really nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you guys as well. And I'm glad that these chapters exist all over the United States, world even, or is it mostly? Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to your next films. We'll keep an eye out.
For sure. Yeah, I will be in touch with Surfrider about them, definitely.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming to our chapter meeting, and I hope you all have a great night. And that's a cute baby.
Thanks so much, Dana. That was awesome.
Oh, thanks
Super
you guys
inspiring.
for watching. Yeah, maybe he or she, is it he or she?
She
Will watch it one day.
Yeah.
Well.
Yay.
Thank you.
All right, y'all.
Thanks, Liz.
Thanks.